Hello and welcome to the 100 Day Art Challenge. This video is number 82 of 100, and as you can see I am back to watercolour. My intention was to do a few more portraits with soft pastels, but then I was making a birthday card for my mum, whose birthday it was yesterday, and I usually like to make her a card. And I thought, normally the most successful medium I can use to make her a card is watercolour. I've tried acrylic and it's hit and miss. It's not always successful. Whereas with watercolour, it's always something which is acceptable, I'd say, as a card. I always try to do something beautiful, but I end up with acceptable, and I take that because that's all I can ask. Now you can see that the first pass here is very loose and watery. It's not how I normally do watercolour. I usually coat the whole surface, but that cut there was for after the first layer had dried. So I wouldn't be adding this on top if the first layer hadn't dried already. But some of this I pull back, and that's what I've started doing a lot with watercolour, is if I'm rushing something to try and bypass a lot of the layers that you really should do, then a lot of the time I will need to dab back some of the darker areas because I get a little bit too enthusiastic with the tonal values early on, which can work, but I'm not that much of a whiz at it yet, so I need to be a bit more cautious. And I do leave these cards till the last minute, but it's because I find that it's different when I do compared to if I try to plan something ahead of time. It just won't work out as well. That's my experience anyway, is that I've tried to make cards a few days before and take a couple of days over them, and they don't have the same life in them as a card like this will, where I'll think, right, her birthday starts in the morning, I need to get a card done, what image do I like? And there's a lot of details that I'm trying to get down in this card, but I'm trying to put it down in a way which is fairly simplified and easy to read as an image, and yet it speaks as a kind of garden scene. This reference image that I was using for this painting comes from Bodmin Gardens, and I have to say, this small brush that I use, which comes with the small Winsor & Newton set, the little compact plastic white set with I think it's 8 colours inside. This brush I found to be probably my favourite brush for watercolour painting, for the detailed stuff, because it can do really fine lines like you see that I did on that fence there, but it also can do big loose work quite well. Not really big, but bigger marks as well, so I think it's got quite a bit of range, this brush, so I do enjoy it. But I enjoyed the fact that this painting required a lot of earth tones, so there were green, brown, red, and I was trying to get in an orangey colour, but I was trying to keep it quite muted, nothing too bright. And that's what I liked about the reference image when I selected it, is that I thought this is it's a pleasant colour palette on the photo reference. So I wanted to paint it when I looked at it. So what I'm doing is just trying to pick through the layers and render details on top of the softer puddled work that I made first. And once that's dried, the detailed layers, to then add more washy details on top. Now you see that's me patting back that darker stuff, as I said that I do quite often. And again, I go dark on top, and I'm pretty certain I dab that back again as well. I think it's because I'm trying to convey a sense of depth. Now this is that washy layer that I mentioned that I'm doing on top of the details. I think that works for me because the details are too sharp, it's too high in contrast on top of the first watery layer. So to then do a slightly washy, more watery stroke on top of that softens that contrast and helps the details to blend in to the environment that I'm trying to create. And I do enjoy watercolour for its versatility in this way of having this really watery, puddled effect, which is really nice, but then also having the sharper, more drawn ability that you can do with it as well. It feels almost like drawing with ink. And then here, the building I thought would have a tint of blue, but not too much, and then just slight touches to make it look like shadow and to create some leaf looking details on top. That's the one thing I think I could have worked on more. Well, there's several things I could have worked on more, but I will say that this video, as you can see, is within a black frame, and that's because it needs a bit of distance to appreciate it. And to emphasize that, what I thought I would do is show you how, as this painting develops, if you give it a little bit more distance, let's take a step back here, and you can see how the distance helps you see it better. And here's me just putting some water on top again to dab it back again to lighten it. So that is something that you can do with watercolour. If you have gone too dark with anything, you can lighten things like that. But there we are, just giving it a bit more distance again, just little steps back, because I think as it develops, seeing it from further away helps. And just one more time, just to give it that much more benefit, just one more step back. There we go. Now that is, I think, the distance that you need to see this painting from, to see it as a nice garden scene with lots of details. But that's the image that I made. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.